Hello my friends, in today's video we are going to talk about 9 cognitive distortions that I find are most common. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'm going to give you a simple framework that you can use to begin to identify your own cognitive distortions and change them over time. If you are new to this channel, then welcome. My name is Wes. I am a clinical mental health counseling graduate student training to become a therapist. And on this channel we talk about mental health and relationships, and I give you practical, hands-on ways to improve both. So if you're into that kind of thing, then please subscribe to my channel. Now, without further ado, let's get into cognitive distortion. So, what are cognitive distortions? Cognitive distortions are basically faulty thinking patterns. They're ways of interpreting events in the world around you that are inaccurate. We all do these things. A lot of them are automatic, and a lot of them are based in things that were protective for us from childhood. Ways of thinking about the world that served us at one point, but really are inaccurate, and we should change them because they don't serve us anymore. And it's really important to work on changing these over time, because the way that we think about things creates our story of the world. And our story of the world leads us to behave in a certain way or feel certain things about the world around us. And of course, if you want to change your life, then you need to change that story. So without further ado, let's dive into the first of the cognitive distortions, which is mental filtering. So filtering happens when we take negative details about a situation or something that happened and we magnify them. And the positive traits of that situation, we don't think about at all. We just filter them out completely. A good example of this is something that I do in my own life, which is around these YouTube videos, for example. Say I post a YouTube video and I immediately start to look for all of the negative criticism or the negative comments that somebody might leave, as opposed to thinking about all the positive things that people leave or all the likes that I get on the video. Simple reminder to please like this video if you're enjoying it so far. And we all do this from time to time, but the problem is that when you begin to think about the negative attributes of whatever situation is, you begin to tie your self-worth to it, and that really can take a toll on your self-esteem over time. So it's good to identify this and learn to combat it when it comes up. The next thing is black or white thinking. So black or white thinking really means that you were thinking about things as either a total success or a total failure. You see this in relationships come up a lot. When somebody thinks about their relationship as a total failure just because one conflict happened. Or when somebody thinks about something at work and they think that they're a total failure just because they got one negative feedback comment from their boss. It's really harmful. And part of the issue here is that it's totally unrealistic. Most of our lives are lived in the gray area. Things are not just black or white. Most things are somewhere in between. And learning to live in that gray area, that ambiguity, can be really helpful to giving you a more accurate interpretation of the world. Number 3 is overgeneralization. This is where you make a hasty conclusion based on one small piece of evidence. So another example from relationships is, say you don't have your partner text you back for 30 minutes and you immediately take that as evidence that they're out there cheating on you and they're going to leave you, right? So it's taking one little thing and blowing it up out of proportion into something that is much larger and assuming something based off that one little piece of evidence. Number 4 is jumping to conclusions. We all do this sometimes, and this is why in relationships I've talked about in other videos assuming the best of your partner. This is really important in not just relationships, but in any kind of interaction with another human being. It's good to try to assume the best. If you see that somebody has done something and you immediately jump to a conclusion about it, then usually that conclusion is going to be wrong because you don't have all the evidence. For example, if you walk in at the end of the day and your partner doesn't greet you because they're being grumpy and they're in a bad mood, maybe you immediately jump to the conclusion that you did something wrong.
Welcome home, Peter.
That they're angry at you, that they hate you, and your relationship is gonna end very soon. In reality, your partner may have just had a bad day at work or gotten told off by her boss or something like that, and it may have nothing to do with you at all. And so jumping to conclusions can then make you act passive aggressively or take something out on her instead, which obviously can lead to more and more problems down the line. So you need to recognize this when it comes up. The next is catastrophizing. So catastrophizing is really the realm of what if. What if, and you see this come up all the time in social situations. Someone may have social anxiety because when they get invited to an event, they immediately start going through what ifs in their head. They say, what if nobody likes me? What if I am unable to speak when I try to go up and introduce myself to that one person? What if I go to the party and everybody laughs at me because I spill a drink on my shirt or something like that, right? There's a million things that can go through your head that are what ifs that are talking about the worst possible situation that could possibly be. The problem with what ifs is that usually they are not true, and 2, they keep you from actually trying things and testing whether or not they are true. This is really a way of self-sabotaging. it can be super harmful. So try to focus on recognizing it when it comes up and think about the alternative. What if I go to this social event and I make a ton of new friends and I become the life of the party and everyone loves me? What if it's the best night of my life when I go out on this date and I meet my future partner, right? So think about the positive aspects of this as well and don't lean too far into catastrophizing. The next is personalization. Personalization is where we believe that everything someone else does or say is about us.
What about you?
Me? Well, it's never about me.
And we think that it's a direct personal reaction to us. Now, obviously, this is not true. People are out there living their lives and barely think about us at all most of the time. And in some ways, that's really good. The problem is when you begin to over-personalize and think that somebody did something and it could have been due to you. You start taking on accountability and ownership for things that you really shouldn't. A good example is in relationships where somebody says, oh, if I had just been more loving to my partner, if I had had sex with them every time they asked me to, then they wouldn't have cheated on me and left me, right? You're taking too much ownership for things that are outside of your control and are probably the other person's fault. The next one is blaming. Blaming is simple. It's blaming other people or situations or events for things that you actually have ownership. Blaming can come up a lot in abusive relationships, but really anybody can do this one. And the issue here is that you are blaming a person or a situation and you're putting yourself into kind of this victim mentality. The problem with that is that you can't take ownership from a place of victimhood. You can't take accountability for changing your life or taking a different path, doing something that's going to help you in the long run if you are stuck blaming other people for things that may be your problem. So the issue here is that you really need to look closely at what you're blaming and see, do I have a part in this? Is there some element of this, even if some of it's out of my control, that is within my control that I can then begin taking action on and trying to change? The next are shoulds and musts. Shoulds and musts are, as the name implies, around things that you think you should or must do. A lot of these come from assumptions based on things from society, from our parents, from our friends, from comparison on social media, and it's things like, oh, I think I should be working out every single day, so I'm gonna get really down on myself and not work out at all. Or I must be waking up at 5 a.m. every single day because that one YouTuber told me that it was a really good idea.
I'm trying to wake up at 5 a.m. every day. I need your help.
And then the problem with this is that if you're not doing those things, then it results in guilt and shame, and that keeps you deeper inside this realm of depression and anxiety and really feeling bad about yourself. Nobody wants to feel bad about themselves, and the best way to get out of that is to change this statement from I should or I must to I deserve or I would like to, right? I aspire to. These are things where you're not putting yourself on the hook for it, but you're saying I deserve to treat my body well, and so I would like to wake up and exercise every day, right? But you're not pushing yourself down if you don't achieve that every single time because there's not guilt associated with it. And the last one is emotional reasoning. Emotional reasoning is really just saying that something you feel must be true. Because you feel unworthy, you must be unworthy. Just because you feel depressed in that moment, you must be depressed. You must have depression. Really, it's tying your feelings to a sense of identity. And the problem with that is that emotions and feelings come and go. You can feel mad for no reason. You can feel sad and just get a wave of sadness, and that may pass, but you shouldn't be tying your identity and your thought processes to that. Now that we've gone through these 9 different cognitive distortions, let's review all of the ones that we've gone through so far. So we've gone through all of these different cognitive distortions. How do we actually change them? Well, I have a really simple formula for you to remember, a little acronym here. It's called NACS. N-A-C-S. So hopefully you can get the knack of this, and this acronym will be a helpful way to remember when one of these cognitive distortions comes up, what to do. So let's dive into what you actually do here. So first step is N for noticing. Notice when you're having these thoughts. Awareness is the first step to any kind of big change, and when you're having a cognitive distortion, it's sometimes good to write it down. I like to open an app on my phone and just write it down right there, because then looking at the text I think can be really helpful. Otherwise, just paying attention to when those thoughts come up in your mind and mentally reviewing them, making sure that you're aware that it's happening. The next step is A for ask. Ask yourself, is this true? Is this real? Is this an accurate interpretation of reality? Put that thought on trial and really run through it, question it, make sure that you are pushing back on the thought, because this is the way that you begin to make the change. C for compassion. Compassion is big here, and I wanted to mention this one specifically because when these thoughts come up, sometimes they trigger shame or negative feelings in us, because we start to realize, oh, I'm having this negative thought again. Oh, it hasn't changed yet. Oh, I've been working on this so hard, but still having these thoughts, and then you get down on yourself, and then you feel guilty that you haven't changed yet, and then you feel sad. And that's not what we need. What we need is compassion in order to make these changes. Compassion for the fact that everyone has these thoughts. They come up for everyone. It's a challenging thing to go through, and you can make a change, but you're gonna fail sometimes, and that's okay. So practice compassion for yourself when these thoughts do come up. And S is for shift. Shift your mindset. Look at the thought, question it, and then shift your mindset around it and choose something different. Choose to act in a different way, choose to think a different thought, and really try to work with this thought, this negative cognitive distortion, and shift it into something a little bit more positive. So, NACS, NACS. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope that you have been able to identify these cognitive distortions when they come up in your own life. Are there any that are really troubling to you? Please leave a comment down below if so. Please give me a like on this video if it was helpful to you, and share it with somebody who you think might find it useful. Thank you.